Good day, everyone. Today, we're taking a look at the civilization, often called the cradle of Western civilization in ancient Greek. So, the timeline for its classical period is generally set from 800 to 323 BCE. During this time, the civilization flourished in northeastern Mediterranean. So, there are the major contributions. So the ancient Greek left an incredible mark on the world, a legacy that continues to influence us today. Their civilization is marked by major contributions in general key areas. First is democracy, the concept of rule by the people, the very foundation of many modern political systems was pioneered in Greek city-states like Athens. So, second is the philosophy. Thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle laid the groundwork for Western philosophical thoughts, asking fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, and reason. So, third is the art and architecture. From the harmonious proportions of the Parthenon to their realistic and idealized sculptures, Greek art and architecture set standards of beauty and form that have been admired and imitated for millennia. So, to fully understand ancient Greece, we must look beyond a single nation and focus instead on its unique political and cultural landscape. So, unlike many ancient empires, ancient Greece was composed of independent city-states known as polis. Important example includes Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and Thebes. Each polis operated as its own sovereign country, complete with its own government, its own laws, its own traditions. So, however, despite this political division, the frequent warfare between the city-states, the Greeks were not entirely disparate people. They maintain a strong shared identity rooted in three key elements. So, first, they all spoke a common language. Second, they shared religious belief and festivals, such as the Pan-Hellenic Games held at Olympia. So, the third, they possessed cultural identity rooted in shared myths and values, which provided a sense of kinship among all Greeks. So, this leads us to a crucial point about ancient Greece. Unity was cultural, not political. There was no single ruler, king, or emperor who governed all of the Greece, which is the key distinction from civilization like ancient Rome or Egypt. So, this combination of intense local pride within each city-state, while also sharing a deep cultural bond, shaped the unique history of the Greek world. The fragile cultural unity of the Greek war was truly tested and solidified during the critical conflict, which is the Persian Wars. So these wars fought from 490 to 479 BCE, pitted the independent Greek city-states against the vast and powerful Persian Empire. So, despite being significantly outnumbered to battles like marathons and Thermopylae, the Greeks through strategic integrity and fierce determination achieved a decisive victory. So, crucially, this existential threat forced the firstly independent police to temporarily set aside their differences, creating a moment of unprecedented political unity, a rarity in the Greek world. So, this victory however, set a stage for a new political dynamic. Unity quickly fractured, leading to the formation of two major and powerful blocks. So, number one, Athens' power. After the wars, Athens emerged as preeminent naval power. So it capitalized on its success and it become the leader of the Delian League, an alliance initially formed to defend Greece from any future Persian attacks. So Athens used this league to project its influence, leading to what historians often call the what we call this Athenian Empire. So number two is the Sparta's counter. Indirect opposition stood Sparta, which led its own alliance, so the Peloponnesian League. So Sparta was fundamentally opposed to Athenian democracy. So and expansionism. So emphasizing its own strength, military power, strict discipline, and more conservative. So this victory over Persia not only preserved Greek culture but ironically also created a bipolar political system that would soon lead to the next major conflict and devastating war between Athens and Sparta. So now, the formation of the two great alliances, the Delian League, led by the Athens, and the Peloponnesian League, led by the Sparta, didn't just create rival military blocs, it solidified the two profoundly different political and cultural patterns in Greece. So, the Athens, the Golden Age. So, Athens took a path in expansion and cultural explosion. It developed into a democratic empire using the resources and value tribute from the leg to fund massive project and intellectual pursuits. So this era known as the Golden Age of Athens. So the city focusing on art, philosophy, and the culture. So this is the time that thinkers like Socrates and construction of the Parthenon. So Athenian power was rooted in its democratic institutions and its naval dominance. So second is the Sparta, tradition and militarism. So conversely, Sparta doubled down on its founding principles. It remained a materialistic and disciplined state, so rejecting the democratic and artistic flourish of Athens. So Sparta's society was entirely geared toward war, so strictly valuing strength, order, and tradition. Its power was land-based, relying on its unmatched army and the conservative support of its allies. So these two powerful and opposing forces, the liberal naval Athenian Empire and the conservative land-based Spartan oligarchy, create a tense and unstable balance of power. So this deep ideological and military split would inevitably lead to a direct and catastrophic confrontation between the two leading powers of the Greek world. So, to fully grasp the conflict of that defined the next era of the ancient Greece, we need to detail the profound differences between the two great alliances or the great rivals. So, which is the Sparta and the Athens. So, in government, so their political system were fundamentally opposed. So, in Sparta was an oligarchy. So, meaning it was ruled by small, wealthy elite. Its system was complex, led by the two kings and a council of elders known as the Gerousia. So, in Athens, on the other hand, was the birthplace of democratic governance. So, it practiced direct democracy, where male citizens could vote on the legislation and propose laws. So, directly engaging in the political life of the city. So, in economy, their economic bases were equally divergent. So, in Sparta's economy was primarily based on farming and conquest. Crucially, it depended on the labor of the helots, so who were state-owned slaves. The state actively discouraged trade and luxury to maintain its instinct, a strict military focus. So, in Athens was a maritime power centered on trade and seafaring So it used a standardized currency and thrived as a commercial hub. So building its wealth through the exchange of goods across the Mediterranean. So this graphic clearly shows the ideological divide, conservative land-based military state versus liberal naval trading democracy. So this stark contrast made their eventual war practically inevitable. So, moving from their governance and economy, we now look the social and military characteristics that further separate Sparta and Athens. So, culture, their cultural values was the diametrically opposed. So, in Sparta's culture was entirely focused on military discipline, obedience, and duty to the state. So the life of the Spartan citizen was one of the simplicity and strength with intellectual or artistic. So person often viewed as anti-intellectual and unnecessary. So Athens culture emphasized arts, philosophy, and the theater and the education. Under the leadership of the figure like Pericles, Athens actively cultivate thinkers, playwrights, and artists, solidifying its status and cultural and intellectual heart of the Greece. So, and military, this cultural focus translates directly into their military capabilities. So, Sparta was known as the supreme land power of the Greece. So, Spartan citizens were rigorously trained from childhood. So, through the agog system, they become the most feared and disciplined elite soldiers in the ancient world. So, in Athens, on the other hand, dominated as the supreme naval power. So, it maintains a powerful fleet of the triumphs, advanced warship, and which protect its vast trade network and protect a project Athenian influence across the Aegean Sea. So, essentially, this was contest between the greatest land army and the greatest navy in the Greek world. So this profound divergence in every aspects of life, from government and economy to culture and military. So granted that their ensuring conflict would be total war for the dominance of the Greece. So that's all. Thank you.
So, hi everybody, good day. I am Jane Chloe Mardan and I am here to report about Sparta. So, when you hear Sparta, what comes into your mind? So, Sparta or Spartans are basically known for their famous way of training people in military. So, let us start in their way of government. So, Sparta is a diarchy. What is a diarchy? Diarchy is when two kings rule at the same time simultaneously, one from the Agiadae and one from the Eurypentidae royal family. Diarchy system is rare in Greece or in ancient Greece, but it helped balance power between two royal families, which is the Agiadae and the Eurypentidae. These dual kings shared responsibilities in governance and in military leadership, providing balance and stability in Spartan rule. Since Sparta had two kings, each king had specific rule or specific responsibility. One is for often led the war, and the other one is the one who will stay in the Sparta and handle political and religious matters. Those two kings have different roles, and that means it helps them to balance the community. Succession was hereditary but still discussed and confirmed by the Council of Elders and the Citizens' Assembly. So, when a king died, his son will automatically succeed his duties. But that process wasn't automatically. It still has process. That process will go through the Gerusha and the Apella. The Gerusha is the Council of Elders, and the Apella is the Citizens' Assembly or the Council of the Citizens of Sparta. This shows that even the royal family was subject to law and oversight. So it does not automatically it will not be automatically passed to you. It still has due process which will help to identify if you deserve the position or not. For the next slide, which is about the economy. Sparta's economy was primarily agriculture, relying heavily on the labor of helots, an enslaved population mostly from Messenia. So, Sparta only relies on agriculture, and that in their agriculture was basically done by the helots, which are also called slave, which were mostly captured from Messenia. And those helots were required to work on the land given by them by the Spartans to provide the agricultural needs of the Spartans, which is the food that is harvested on the land. Helots were state-owned serfs who lived on the land they cultivated and were required to give about half of their produce to their Spartan masters. Since helots were given a land to cultivate, they also live there, and their harvests are usually cut in half for the helots and half for the Spartans, and that is their way of giving back to the Spartans, or it's not giving back, it's a requirement that they have to give half of their harvest to the Spartans. Unlike typical slaves in other Greek cities, helots were not bought or sold and usually remained on their own villages, though they were under the strict Spartan control. So helots were not private slaves. They were owned by the state. From there, helots are different from regular slaves. They couldn't be bought or sold, and they generally lived in their own villages. So they still has some privileges, which is they can live in their own villages. However, they still have to give some of their harvest to the Spartans. And the Helots were still under the control of the Spartans to avoid rebellion. For the next slide, which is still about the government and the civilization of Sparta, the Gerusha, made up of 28 elders over age of 60 plus, and the two kings, which sums up to 30 people, prepared laws and diplomatic matters for the appellate to vote on. So basically, the Gerusha is the people who have the higher rank or who have the power to make laws and diplomatic matters which will be voted by the Apella or the citizens of Sparta. The Ephors, or the five officials elected annually, enforced laws, supervised education, and checked the king's power, ensuring accountability. So, the Ephors were a group of five powerful people who is chosen every year. So they are voted or they are selected every year. They have many duties. They enforced Sparta's law, monitored education, and even had authority over the king. So they are that powerful. The main purpose of efforts is to keep balance and accountability in the government. Power in Sparta rested in the hands of a small elite groups which consists of the king, the elders, and the Ephors, reflecting a strict oligarchy focused on control, stability, and tradition rather than democracy. Their goal is to stabilize the state in order and in control. For the next slide, which is still about the economy of the Spartans, the dependence of Helot labor allowed Spartan citizens, or so the Spartan citizens are called Spartiates, allowed Spartiates to dedicate their time to military training and governance instead of farming or trade. Since they have the Helots to work for them in the agriculture or to provide food for the Spartiates are more focused to military training since since they don't have to worry about the food that they will eat. They have the ample time to dedicate it to military training and governance instead of farming. The fear of Helot revolts, especially after repeated uprisings in Messenia, pushed Sparta to maintain a rigid military system to control its population and preserve order. So, since the Helots came from Messenia, who has rebelled several times, the Spartiates were scared that they will rebel again. To prevent this, Sparta built a strict and powerful military system to keep the Helots under control and maintain peace. Trade and craftsmanship were discouraged and Spartiates were forbidden from engaging in commerce. The Spartiates are expected to enhance their skills in military training. So they were forbidden to engage in trade and craftsmanship, also to engage in commerce. Periokoi, a separate class of free non-citizens, handled trade, manufacturing, and foreign relations, while Helots sustained the agricultural base that supported the Spartan state. So the Spartiates have a different class of people, which is called the Perioki. They were the free non-citizens. They were free but not full citizens. They handled trades, so since the Spartiates are forbidden to handle trades, the Perioki are the ones who handled it, the trades, the manufacturing, and the foreign relations, while the Helots are managing the farms. Together, these two groups supported the Spartan system, allowing the warriors or the Spartiates to only focus on training. So now let's proceed to the culture of civilization of Sparta. Spartan culture centered on strength, obedience, endurance, and loyalty, values considered essential for maintaining a powerful warrior society. The heart of Spartan culture was about discipline and structure. They valued obedience, loyalty, and endurance, believing these were necessary to maintain their military power. From a young age, Spartans were taught to prioritize duty to the state, self-discipline, and collective welfare over personal interest. The Agoge, Sparta's state, Sparta state, ay, the Agoge, Sparta state, run military education system trained boys from 7 to become skilled and disciplined soldiers. So, from the early age of 7, the boys there are trained in military training, in basic military training. So, they have these three different levels. From the age 7 to 14, they have their early physical and mental training. So, here they only do basics like running, jumping, light combat practice, and survival lessons. So, the next is the Paidiskoi, from the age 14 to 20. In here, they have the advanced military exercise and endurance tasks. So, their tasks here, or the things that they do here, or the activities, are more likely about the weapons training, spying or scouting missions, and mentorship under older soldiers. So, they were mentored by the soldiers which is above their age. The next is the Hibontes. So from the age of 20 to 30. In here, they are already a full-time soldiers preparing for active services. So since they have reached the age where they are allowed to go to war, their activities here are more on daily combat drills, guard duty, they guard the city state, and physical conditioning routines. So more likely they are ready enough to go to a war. For the next slide, which is still about the culture, through the Agoge, Spartan boys developed courage, resilience, and loyalty, becoming elite warriors devoted entirely to their polis. So since they have the agoge system, which trained boys from the age of 7, they have already developed the skills, the courage, and the dedication for them to dedicate their life to the city states. And they also became fearless and disciplined warriors. Luxury and personal wealth were discouraged, and simplicity, equality, and discipline were seen as virtues. So, Spartans believed that luxury made people weak, so they valued simplicity and equality instead. So they have this belief that when people are extravagant, or when the people are exposed to luxury, it it will become their weakness. Living simply helped them stay strong and united. Loyalty to the state was valued above all else, ensuring a society united in purpose and military strength. Above all, Spartans were expected to be loyal to the state. This loyalty created a united and powerful society where everyone worked for purpose to protect Sparta. Work with purpose means they have their different responsibilities. The Helots were responsible for the farming, the Perioikoi are responsible for trade, and the Spartiates are responsible for the military training. And now, let's proceed to the civilization of Sparta in terms of their military. Sparta's entire society was built around military excellence, producing the most powerful and disciplined army in ancient Greece. Every part of Spartan's life revolved around military training. Their focus on training and discipline produced the strongest army in all of Greece. So, since they are more focused on developing or in cultivating people in terms of military, they became famous because of it. Spartan warriors were admired and feared for their rigorous training, strict discipline, and unity in battle, making them the dominant land power in Greece for centuries. Spartan soldiers were both admired and feared. They are admired because of their way of training, and they are feared also because of their capabilities to war. Their intense training and perfect teamwork made them unstoppable on land for hundreds of years. The core of the Spartan army consisted of hoplites, heavily armed infantry soldiers equipped with bronze armor, large shields, and long spears. The Spartan army's main force was made up of hoplites, who were heavily armed infantry soldiers, and they were bronze armor, carried large shields, and bought with long spears. So they have these hoplites who are well armored. And now let's continue about the military system of the Sparta. Hoplites fought in a phalanx formation, a tightly organized line of soldiers whose coordination and discipline made them nearly unbeatable in close combat. So, a phalanx formation is a tight line of soldiers in armored with shields overlapping. Their teamwork and coordination made them difficult to beat and also made them difficult to defeat in close battles. To strengthen its influence and counter Athens, Sparta led the Peloponnesian War, an alliance of Greek city-states in the Peloponnese region. To expand their power, Sparta formed the Peloponnesian League, an alliance so to enhance so to expand the power of the Spartans, they made a Peloponnesian League, which consists of the city-states in Greece. This helped them challenge the growing influence of Athens. So, since they have already formed an alliance, it helped them challenge the growing influence of Athens during that time. The League provided mutual defense, additional troops, and resources, allowing Sparta to extend its dominance and challenge Athenian power, especially during the Peloponnesian War. So the League works as a mutual defense alliance. Its members help each other with soldiers and supplies. Through this alliance, Sparta gained more power and control, especially during the Peloponnesian. So, since the Sparta formed an alliance called the Peloponnesian League, and it gained them more power and control against the Athens during the Peloponnesian War.
Everyone, my name is Denmark M. Andres, and for today's discussion, we are going to tackle the civilization of Athens. Government. So, the ancient Greeks were the first to establish a democracy, a term from the Greek word demos, or people, and kratos for rule. So, this means that the Greeks created a system of government where people came from the people. So, the word democracy itself literally means ruled by the people. And democracy means citizens take an active role in governing, either directly or through elected representatives. So in Athens, citizens didn't just obey rules or laws. They helped make them. So they could vote on issues and choose leaders to represent them. So the first democracy in the history happens or developed in Athens around um, the 5th century BCE. So Athens was the birthplace of democracy, and around 500 BCE, it became the first place in the world to use this type of government. So Cleisthenes of 508 BCE, known as the father of democracy, reformed Athens by creating 10 new tribes and residents. So instead of organizing citizens by family or wealth, he grouped them by where they lived. This helped create equality and unity among Athenians. So also, he formed the Council of 500 to manage daily affairs. So this council handled everyday government works like preparing laws and managing administration. And also, he allowed citizens' participation through the assembly or the ecclesia. So, the assembly was the citizens met to discuss and vote on important issues like laws and wars. So, he also introduced ostracism to limit aristocratic power. Ostracism was a system where citizens could vote to exile someone seen as too powerful or dangerous to democracy for 10 years. So it prevented any one person from taking over. And now let's proceed to the citizens. Three adult men born to Athenian parents could only certain people counted as citizens in Athens or free men born in Athens. So women, slaves, and foreigners couldn't participate. Vote, propose laws, and speak in the assembly. So citizens had the right to directly vote on laws and express their opinions in public meetings. And also they can decide on key issues like war, laws, and officials. So important national decisions such as declaring war or choosing leaders were made by the citizens themselves. Now let's proceed with the major institutions. So Ecclesia, this is the assembly for lawmaking and policy decision. So this was the main democratic gathering where citizens voted on laws and policies. So Bowl, the Council of 500 preparing government matters. So the Bowl organized meeting, set the agenda for the assembly, and ensured government ran smoothly. Next is the People's Court, citizens' juries deciding legal cases. So regular citizens acted as judges and jurors to make legal decisions, not just officials or nobles. So they have this limitation. So women, slaves, and foreigners or metics were excluded from political rights. So only male citizens could only vote or join in politics. So women, enslaved people, and foreigners had no say in government affairs. Let's proceed with the economy of Athens. So Athens has a strong and prosperous economy built primarily on sea trade, specifically across the Aegean Sea. So Athens became rich by trading goods across the seas with other cities and regions. So its coastal location and powerful navy made it a major trading hub in the Mediterranean. So because Athens was near the sea and had strong ships, it became a center for commerce and exchange. So now, the Athens exported goods such as olive, wine, pottery, and silver, and imported essential products like grain, timber, and luxury items to sustain their growing population and wealth. That's according to Engen 2004. So they sold handmade and natural goods like pottery and olive oil, and bought necessary materials like food and wood that they lacked. So, trade and maritime strength helped Athens become one of the richest and most influential city states in ancient Greece. That's according to Cartwright and Macquarie 2025. So, because of trade and sea power, Athens grew very wealthier and became a powerful leader and become the progressive in the Greece cities. The Delian League originally formed to defend against Persia, also boosted in Athens' economy. So the Delian League was an alliance of Greek city-states led by Athens, and it started as a defense group, but it later helped Athens gain power and wealth. The treasury, first kept of the laws, was later moved to Athens, giving the city control over defense. So the league's shared money was originally stored in the island of Delos, but Athens took it to their own money. This gave them financial control. These resources finance major public works, including the Parthenon, symbolizing Athens' wealth, power, and cultural dominance. So Athens used the league's money to build grand structures like the Parthenon, showing off their success, beauty, and influence. Let's proceed with the culture of Athens. So, Athens was the cultural and intellectual heart of ancient Greece, attracting artists, philosophers, and scholars from across the Mediterranean. So, Athens became the center of knowledge and creativity in the ancient Greece. People who love art, learning, and philosophy came from other places to study and share ideas there. The city became renowned for its achievement in art, architecture, and drama, reflecting its pursuit of beauty and knowledge. So Athens gained famous of they are famous for creating beautiful works of arts and impressive buildings. So its ways and performance showed how much Athenians valued wisdom and creativity. Architecture flourished with masterpieces like the Parthenon, symbolizing Athenian pride and devotion to the goddess Athena. So, the Parthenon, a temple built on the Acropolis, was one of the greatest examples of Greek architecture. So, it showed how much the Athenians honored Athena, their patron goddess, and took pride in the city's greatness. So the Athenians loved theater and were the first to develop plays. Like Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes created tragedies and comedies that are still known today. So philosophy thrived through the teaching of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, whose ideas laid the foundation of Western thought. So the Athens produced three of more than important thinkers in history. Their lessons about logic, ethics, and knowledge continue to influence how people think even up to date. So education focused on rhetoric philosophy, music, and the arts, preparing citizens to think critically and participate actively in democracy. So, Athenian education trained young children to speak well, think deeply, and appreciate the arts. This helped them take part responsibly in the government and community life. Let's proceed with the military of the Athens civilization. So, Athens' greatest military strength was its powerful navy, which enabled it to control sea trade routes and defend against enemy. That's according to Boston 2018. So, unlike Sparta, which focused on its army, Athens became more powerful because of its navy. Its ship protected the city and helped it dominate sea trade routes. As the leader of the Delian League, Athens used its fleet to protect other city-states and expand its influence across the Aegean Sea. So Athens led an alliance of Greek cities called the Delian League. At first, it was made to defend Greece from Persia, but later Athens used it to spread its power. So the Athenian was built around triremes, fast and agile warships with three rows of oars, giving them superior speed of maneuverability. And that's according to Britannica 1998. So these ships, called triremes, were light and quick. These ships could easily move and strike enemies, making the Athenians nearly unbeatable at the sea. This naval dominance allowed Athens to secure trade routes, maintain regional control, and assert political power over its allies. So, because Athens ruled the seas, so it could keep trade flowing. So, stay in control of nearby regions and even pressure its allies into following its leads. So next, over time, Athens used the league's resources to maintain or to strengthen its own empire, turning the alliance to a tool of Athenian power than a mutual defense.
So, in the continuation of our discussion and our topic, in my part, I will be discussing the causes of the conflict between the two, the Athens and Sparta. So, the first one is what we called the political and ideological differences. So, I'm going to start with the Athens. So Athens, the way of their government there is that they practice democracy, where the citizens directly participated in a government decision through assemblies, where the rulers actually told their citizens that they must actively participate, especially engage in civic participation. So actually, their ruler gave them the freedom. So if there's a freedom, so they have the right to vote, they have the right to debate, and they have the right to propose laws. So that is the Athens way of government. But in Sparta, we can say that the way of their government is what we called oligarchy, which means that this is opposite to Athens, because Athens, the way of their life there is they have the freedom, but in Sparta they are being controlled by their ruler. So their power was concentrated among a small ruling elite, which is led by two kings and a council of elders, which means that the Athens, they possess freedom, which is they have the right to vote, they have the right to speak for themselves, they have the right to voice out their problems and issues, and also they have the right to justify their opinion. But in Sparta, they are opposite to Athens because they are being controlled by their rulers. They have a limitation in action. So let's proceed to another discussions, which is that these opposite systems reflected a deep ideological divide. So which means that in Athens, they valued freedom. Of course, because of freedom, they have the right to vote, they have the right to debate, and they have the right to propose law. And also, they are engaged in government decision through assembly, so which means it is part of the civic participation. While the Sparta, they emphasize order because they are being ruled by their ruler, they are being in control. So, and also the Sparta emphasizes discipline, so they are being disciplined. Of course, they will obey the rules and regulations that being given to them by the rulers. And also they are emphasizing obedience, because if they don't actually follow the rules and regulations of their ruler, they might be a consequences of that. So that is the opposite system between the both Athens and Sparta. Again, Athens, their way of government, they practice democracy, while the Sparta, they practice oligarchy, which is that the ruler controlled their people. But in Athens, the people have their own but the people in Athens have their freedom. So they valued freedom, debate, and civic participation, while in Sparta they emphasized order, discipline, and obedience. And also, as both sought expand their influence, both city-states sought to spread their political ideas to allies. So this may cause mistrust and rivalry. Because of the opposite, the differences of the political and ideological between Athens and Sparta, these may lead to mistrust and rivalry because they don't do the same. So, this fundamental clash of values made peaceful cooperation impossible because if there is a mistrust and rivalry, of course, there will be no peaceful cooperation. This may take a lot of time and this may be not possible. So, that's it for the political and ideological differences. So next is letter B, the growth of Athenian power. So the rise after the Persian War, following the Persian defeat, the Athens formed a league known as the Delian League. This league is actually it is a defensive alliances that protect Greece from future attack or invasion of the Persian. Again, the Delian League is one of the alliances which protects the Greece from the future attack or invasion of the Persian. So over the time, the Athens used this league as a funds for its resources. This may be fund to the rebuilding of the city and also for the strengthening of its navy. And it is established control over member states. The treasury was moved from Delos to Athens. When we say Delos, this is a Greek island and archaeological site in the Aegean Sea. As I mentioned, navy earlier, which is connected to the Aegean Sea because in Athens, they are prone of the maritime state, which is in the sea. So, the treasury was moved from Delos to Athens, symbolizing Athenian dominance. When we say Athenian dominance, it is something that the Athens rise as a dominant naval and political power in ancient Greece. So, which is that the Athens is more dominant in that time. And also, the Sparta and its allies viewed this as imperial expansion rather than cooperation. They said that because the Sparta and allies viewed the things that the Athens do because the imperial expansion means that this is the policy of a nation that extending its power and influence over other countries through military conquest, colonization, or more specifically in the politics and economics matter. So again, this Athens' growing influence mark the beginning of the Athenian hegemony. So when we say hegemony, it is the dominance of one group over others. So it is supported by ideologies or norms. So that this strengthens the Sparta's leadership of the Greek world. So that is how the growth of Athenian power is one of the causes of the conflict between Sparta and Athens. Again, after the Persian War, they form a league known as the Delian League, which is one of the alliances that protected Greece from the future attack of the Persian. And over time, this league was used as fund for the rebuilding of their city and for the strengthening of their navy. Then the treasury was moved to Delos. Delos is a Greek island and archaeological site in Aegean Sea. And Aegean Sea through Athens, that's symbolizing Athenian dominance, which is that and the Athens is more dominant in that time. Then also, the Sparta and allies view this as imperial expansion rather than cooperation. They said that because when we say Athenian dominance, this is actually a dominant naval about the political or other things that matters in that sense, where they do rather military conquest or colonization rather than cooperation or with helping. So after growing influence, this marked the beginning of Athenian hegemony, the dominance of one group over others that supported with ideologies and norms. So this strengthened, or this no, not strengthened, this threatens the Sparta's leadership of the Greek world. So that is the growth of Athenian power. So let's proceed to the economic and military rivalry. So first is, let me discuss the economy of the Athens. So the Athens is based on what we called trade and maritime commerce. So it is usually the Athens was the economic powerhouse of Greece. So Athens, their way of economy was based on trade and commerce, or commerce maritime, or the maritime commerce. Then while the Sparta, their way of economy was land-based. If it is land-based, this is usually based on agricultural, and they are dependent on the helots, which means that is the enslaved laborers for farming. So these helots are the one who is working in the sense of agriculture or farming. Then again, the Athens is their way of economy is based on trade and maritime commerce. That this brings wealth to their society, and this actually one of the economic powerhouse of Greece. And while the Sparta, on the other hand, is the economy was based on land-based. So it basically is actually on agricultural aspects. So the two powers symbolize different forms of strength. When we say in Athens, they are naval and commercial dominance, because as what I said earlier, that the Athens is they are in navy states or maritime states. So in naval and commercial dominance, it states that they have the ability to control and influence the sea with a what we call this with a strong merchant of maritime. So or we can say it as a strong merchant of marine. So again, the Athens is influencing, or they have the ability to control or influence the sea with a strong merchant of marine. Then actually, on the other hand, the Sparta, the land-based and military supremacy, is that this is actually based on what I said, that the way of economy in Sparta was based on land-based. So this is actually based on agriculture, and they also have the military supremacy. And also, both sides created rival alliances, which means that earlier I discussed about the Delian League, which is one of the alliances to protect Greece from the future attack of the Persian. But both sides created rival alliances, and Athens, they are the one who lead the Delian League. So I discussed to you all earlier what is Delian League, and also the Sparta lead the Peloponnesian League. Again, Athens lead the Delian League, and Sparta led the Peloponnesian League. So this growing division between land and sea powers led to constant competition for allies, influences, and resources, because they have their own differences in terms of government and economy, and so forth, so on and so forth. So again, in Athens, their way of their way of economy was based on trade and maritime commerce, while the Sparta's economy was based on land-based or agriculture, and they are dependent on the helots, or what we call the enslaved laborers for farming. So they are the one working in the aerial land. So next is the two powers symbolizes different forms of strength. The Athens, they are in naval and commercial dominance, and Sparta is land-based and military supremacy. Athens in naval because they are, as what I said earlier, they have this kind of state, which means a maritime state. And the Sparta is the land-based and military supremacy because they are more on agricultural aspects. So that's it for the economic and military rivalry. Okay, let's proceed to letter D, the immediate causes. So before the Peloponnesian War was officially begun, the tensions escalated through smaller conflicts involving Sparta's allies. So the tensions were already rising because of the smaller fights between Athens and the allies of Sparta. So allies is the friends of Sparta. So these tensions, they have an event or a major event, and that the immediate causes, number one event is the Corinth versus Corcyra. So the Corinth versus Corcyra is from 433 BCE. So this states there that the Athens supported Corcyra, angering Corinth. So Corcyra is a colony, while the Corinth is a mother city. So both of them, the Corcyra and Corinth, had a conflict or fight. So because Athens decided to help Corcyra, which made Corinth very angry since Corinth was allied or friend with Sparta. So that is the cause of their conflict. The cause of the conflict of Corcyra and Corinth was based on that the Athens decided to help Corcyra, which made Corinth very angry since Corinth was allied with Sparta. Next is the Potidaea revolt. So the Potidaea revolt is from 432 BCE. So Athens demanded loyalty from Potidaea, but the city resisted with Corinth's aid. So the Athens told Potidaea, one of its subject cities, to the Athens told Potidaea to cut ties with Corinth and stay loyal only to Athens. Again, the Athens told Potidaea to cut ties with Corinth and stay loyal only or faithful only for Athens. But the conflict begins the conflict begins in a state that the Potidaea refused, and with the help from Corinth. Then this lead to rebel against Athens. So Athens told Potidaea that to cut ties with Corinth and stay loyal only to Athens, but Potidaea refused, and with the help from Corinth, this lead to rebellion against Athens. So that is the Potidaea revolt. And for the Megarian decree from 432 BCE, that the Athens banned trade with Megara, crippling its economy. So Athens banned Megara, a Spartan ally, from trading with Athenian markets and ports. Then, because of that, this resulted to an event that this hurt Megara's economy. This hurt Megara's economy badly and made Sparta furious. So because of that, these actions broke the peace treaty called the 30 Years' Peace, made in 445 BCE. These disputes violated the 30 years peace signed on 445 BCE between Athens and Sparta. Because Athens was acting more and more aggressive towards Spartan allies, Sparta fell 310 and financially declared war on Athens in 431 BCE, starting the Peloponnesian War. So again, the start of the Peloponnesian War was because the Athens was acting more and more aggressive towards the Spartan allies. So the Sparta felt threatened and financially threatened. So the Athens in 431 actually composed themselves, composed their city, composed their society for the starting of the Peloponnesian War. So that is the immediate causes of one of the immediate causes of the cause and conflict between Athens and Sparta. So again, the tension escalated through smaller conflicts involving Sparta's allies, and this is the event. These are the events: the Corinth versus Corcyra, Potidaea Revolt, and Megarian Decree. So each event has a conflict. So because of the conflict, these disputes violated the 30 years peace signed between Athens and Sparta. This is their formal agreement. The 30 years peace is one of the formal agreement between Athens and Sparta, that they, in order to resolve their problems, they need to have the proper discussions, agreement, not in a state of war. Again, that is how 30 years peace was actually mean. So that is actually the 30 years peace means. So again, the 30 years peace is one of the formal agreement between Athens and Sparta, that when it comes to different events or happenings between them, they must discuss it properly. They must actually talk about it properly, not in a state of war. But this action broke the peace treaty, the 30 years peace, because of the Athens was acting more aggressive. So because of the Athens action, the Sparta fell 310 and they are being threatened and financially declared war on Athens in 431. So because of that, the Peloponnesian War started. So that is actually the one of the causes of the conflict between Sparta and Athens.
Good day, everyone. Today I'll be discussing the four major events of Peloponnesian War, which was long and destructive conflict between Athens and Sparta from 431 to 404 BCE. The first phase of Peloponnesian War was known as the Archidamian War, which occurred from 431 to 421 BCE. This phase began with Sparta declared war on Athenians, officially marking the start of long and destructive conflict between the two powerful Greek city-states. Sparta's main strategy was to involve Attica, burning crops and farmlands to pressure Athens into fighting on land. However, Athens was well aware that Sparta was superior in land warfare. So instead, the Athenians avoided direct land battles and relied on their strong naval power. Through their navy, they attacked the Spartan coastline and protected their vital trade routes. Unfortunately, during this time, a deadly plague struck Athens in 431 BCE, killing about one-third of its population, including its great leader Pericles. This strategy greatly weakened Athens, both socially and militarily. After years of continuous fighting, the heavy losses both eventually grew exhausted, which led to a contemporary agreement in 421 BCE. The second phase is called the Peace of Nicias, which lasted from 4 421 to 415 BCE. After a declare of relentless warfare, both Athens and Sparta were greatly weakened and sought peace. In 421 BCE, Nicias, as Athenian general, successfully negotiated a treaty that aimed to end the hostilities for 50 years. The treaty required both sides to return captured territories and release prisoners of war, with the goal of restoring stability between the rivals' power. However, the peace was fragile. Even with a formal agreement, mistrust between Athens and Sparta continued. Minor battles and political tensions persisted, showing that neither side was truly willing to let go of their ambition. Within just 6 years, the treaty collapsed due to renewed rivalries and shifting political interest. This marked the end of the Peace of Nicias and the beginning of the new phase of conflict. Following the collapse of the Peace of Nicias, Athens embarked on a new and ambitious campaign called the Sicilian Expedition, which took place from 415 to 413 BCE. During this phase, Athens aimed to expand its influence by invading Sicily, particularly the wealthy city-state of Syracuse. The expedition was led by three generals, Nicias, Alcibiades, and Lamachus. But disagreement and poor coordination among them soon became a major problem. Early in the campaign, Alcibiades was recalled to Athens to face charges of impiety. Instead of returning, he defected to Sparta and revealed Athens' strategies, which severely damaged the mission. Without strong leadership, Athens struggled against the defenses of Syracuse. Eventually, Sparta reinforcements arrived to assist Syracuse, completely turning the tide of battle. By 413 BCE, the campaign ended in a total disaster. The entire Athenian fleet was destroyed. Thousands of soldiers were either killed or enslaved. The Athens suffered a massive loss in power and morale. The final phase of Peloponnesian War is known as the Decelean or Ionian War, which lasted from 413 to 404 BCE. After Athens' devastating defeat in Sicily, Sparta launched a renewed offensive against them. With financial support from Persia, Sparta was able to build a powerful navy, enabling them to challenge Athens' dominance at sea, something Athens had long relied on. Under the command of Lysander, Sparta established a fort of Decilia in Attica, cutting off Athens' trade and supply. This blockade caused severe economic decline, famine, and unrest within the city. By 405 BCE, Sparta's navy decisively defeated the Athenian fleet at the Battle of Aegospotami. A year later, in 404 BCE, Athens surrendered, officially ending the Peloponnesian War. This final phase marks Sparta's rise as leading power in Greece, while Athens faced a long period of political, economic, and military decline. In conclusion, or in summary, the Peloponnesian War was not just a battle between Athens and Sparta. It was a struggle that reshaped the balance of power in ancient Greece. Though its four major phases, we can see how ambition, strategy, and internal conflict ultimately led to a fall of Athens and the rise of Sparta as a dominant force in Greek history.
So now I'm going to discuss to you the emergence of new patterns of civilization. First one is the political patterns. So, after the Peloponnesian War, Athens and Sparta became weak, losing money, soldiers, and power. Both city-states could no longer control other regions.
allowing new powers like Thebes and Macedonia to rise. Smaller city-states lost independence while bigger regional powers began to dominate. Thebes became powerful for a short time after defeating Sparta in 371 BCE. Macedonia under King Philip II united most Greece. His son Alexander the Great built an empire spreading Greek culture to Egypt and India. Alexander's founding of the city Alexandria in Egypt became a center of Greek learning and culture. This marked the end of city-states and the start of monarchy and empire rule, the Hellenistic age. The Hellenistic kingdoms such as Egypt under the Ptolemies showed how monarchy replaced democracy in Greece. The second one is the military patterns. The long war changed how Greeks fought. They formed professional army instead of part-time citizen soldiers. Soldiers trained year-round under state pay instead of volunteering only during wars. Philip II of Macedonia created a Macedonian phalanx using longer spears and tighter formation. This formation helped Macedonia defeat the Greek city-state at the Battle of Chaeronea, 338 BCE. Armies began using cavalry, horsemen, and combining land and sea attacks, making wars more strategic. And Alexander the Great cavalry played key role in victories like the Battle of Issus against Sparta. City-states started making alliances and treaties for protection instead of fighting alone. The Carthaginian League united Greek states under Macedonia to fight Persia together. These changes made Greece's military stronger and more advanced, leading to greater conquest. Alexander's well-trained army conquered a vast empire to Greece to India. The last one is the cultural patterns. The war caused loss and suffering, making people question their beliefs and government. Citizens began doubting democracy after seeing Athens' downfall and the war. Socrates encouraged critical thinking about morality, justice, and democracy. Socrates' questioning style, the Socratic method, inspired people to think for themselves. Plato, his student, wrote the Republic, suggesting that wise philosopher kings should believe. Plato Academy became one of the first schools to train future leaders and thinkers. Aristophanes used comedy to criticize war and politics, while Euripides showed the pain of war in tragedies. Aristophanes plays Lysistrata mocked war by having women refuse to support fighting. Greek art shifted from idealism to realism, showing real emotion and human experiences. Statues like the Dying Gown displayed emotion and struggle rather than perfect beauty. Greek culture became more thoughtful, realistic, and philosophical after the war. Greek thinkers like Aristotle focused on logic and observation, shaping Western philosophy.